Well, welcome back to the Regular Dad Podcast, where we are regular dadding all the time. Episode 15, we are interviewing our good friend Paul from across the pond. Paul, if I could not say your last name, it's simple. It sounds simple, but I butcher it and I refuse to.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So
I get it wrong sometimes.
That's okay. Well, you've been here a long time now, so...
It's part of my assimilation.
Yes, as part of joining the ungrateful colonials.
Indeed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but please just tell us who you are, a little bit about you, and just let's jump in.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Paul. My last name is Dufer. That's how you correctly pronounce it.
I mean, I'd like to get an audio sample of this when we're done, please.
Yeah, you got to have that little.
I'm gonna play.
You got to have that little French wang there on the.
Yeah,
end of it,
it's very elegant.
Yeah.
It's in Texas. It's just that's.
Yeah, the best I can hope for here is Dufer. It's like.
I try to soften the R.
Yeah.
But Siri, and I've tried every which way to get her to say it, but she and I interact with your wife at church, so I need to call her about something. But it's call Ashley do FU, and I'm like, well, that's not okay. So I
got a lot of that in high school. So.
Right, yeah. So I'm like, so Siri's in junior high or something. I don't know, but anyway, please.
Yeah, no, So I grew up in England. I moved to the United States when I was 21. I'm
against your will.
It was, it was kind of by accident, really, to be honest. I was trying to be part of a schools ministry in the United Kingdom, and they didn't have any room on any of the teams that I wanted to join, but they said, hey, we have a team in the US. Would you be interested in joining them?
Sure.
Sounds like fun. We'll do that for a year, see what happens.
All right.
And 20, soon to be 21 years later, I'm still banging around here.
So you've crossed the 50%.
I'm almost at the 50% line. So I actually came here 2 days before my 21st birthday, and then I turned 41 in September. Turned 42 in September. So it's 50% this September.
There you go.
So, but it's funny though, because it's 20 years. I teach teenagers.
Godspeed, sir.
In school. But a lot of them kind of make jokes about me being English, all that kind of thing, and it's just funny because I've been here longer than them, Yeah. So
I'm older than you.
Yeah, and
I've been here.
I've been in this country longer than you've been alive, so technically I belong here more than you do.
Exactly.
And I know their history better than them too.
Yeah.
So I get to correct them on American history, which is honestly probably my favorite thing I enjoy correcting people just. In general. But correcting Americans on American history is probably one of my favorite things.
Yes, so. And it is very it's sad but also comical. We have a friend from Uganda, and he is working on citizenship and what he knows about this country. He's a walking history book. Yep. If I need to look up something real quick, if Google's not available, I can call him. Hey man, what's going on with this? And he would know. So. Yeah,
I actually met my wife on my second or third day in the country.
Okay. You didn't waste any time.
Well, I did actually. Oh. I met her on the second or third day. We didn't get married for 6 years. After that day, there was a series of unfortunate events that it was a journey to get to where we where we ended up. I was not as cool as I thought I was, I think, in those days.
I don't know. You're pretty cool.
And I'll show you the pictures, but she was not instantly drawn to me. I don't think. And then when the opportunity arose, something in my brain glitched, and I said, I don't think I'm ready for a relationship. Which I don't know why I said that, but I did. So that added probably another 2 years to the journey.
Yes. That's a hard one to recover from.
Yeah, it really was.
Never mind, just kidding.
Because in my mind, it was maybe in a few weeks, maybe in a few months, you
right.
know, whatever. In her mind, it was, I'll go date someone else.
That's funny.
So we had to take that journey for a little bit. But yeah, 6 years later, we finally got married, and probably her best decision. And I don't know. I'm pretty. She's better than me in every way, right?
Well, I mean, you brought it up.
With the exception of maybe being on time.
Again, you brought it up.
But yeah, no, I lucked out pretty good. So she's pretty awesome. And we have 3 kids.
Yep.
We're slowly making America Great Britain again.
Yeah.
That's my mantra at this point.
You need a T-shirt.
We should make a T-shirt.
If you find it, I'll buy it. Yeah. That's greatness. That's greatness.
Yeah. We have 3. I call them our half breeds because they're.
Dear Lord.
That's probably inappropriate, but
well, they're your kids, so
that's true.
You can do whatever.
Yeah. So, but so we have 3 kids, and they are right now 2, 4, and 6, and I am 41, and I would say that I am entirely too old to have kids at that age.
There is a multiplier somewhere in there. There's a weighted factor of aging that happens when kids are, especially when they're that 2-year step, man. Yeah. I mean, you can feel the aging happen.
Yep. So I have pictures of me holding our firstborn. I was 35-ish, and there's not much gray.
Right.
Yeah. And
you were working with teenagers even.
And I've been working with teenagers for a solid 13 years at that point. So there should have been more gray than there was. But
right.
I moved. We had our first, and then I became a teacher that same summer. So teaching plus kids. Is this.
Yes. Yeah, there you go. Well, you've earned it well, and you wear it well.
So I don't have a choice at this point. So
embrace it.
We go with it. But yeah, so I'm an older dad for the age that I have, and the reason for that was we had a period of 7 years where we weren't able to have children.
Wow, 7
years. Yeah. So the first 7 years of our marriage were. Blissful in a sense because we didn't have kids, you know, and you can do whatever you want,
right?
You know, and you have a lot of freedom in that sense. But it was hard too. Right. There's something that comes with that that infertility journey that we don't talk about a whole lot. You know, especially guys don't talk about it a whole lot.
No. Dude, I was so nervous when I called you about this. I was like, hey, man. What do you think about this?
You know, it's one of those things where women don't talk about it a whole lot, right? But men talk about it even less. And where we were 10 years ago, you know, in the middle of this journey, it really was not something that was talked about a whole lot. Now, awareness has come a long way over the last 10 years, right? And there's a lot more stuff. There's like Facebook groups out there and all this kind of stuff. There's support groups and people are much more aware of, you know, the pain and stuff associated with infertility now than they were 10, 15 years ago when we were kind of going through it.
Right.
At least in the female department. For men, I still think that there's not really a system in place or anything, you know, that we have to kind of talk about and kind of process through this. And it's pretty common though, like at least, you know, on some level, you know, women encounter this issue. I think it's something like 20%, you know, kind of in that region are going to experience it at some point, you know, in their parenthood journey. But for guys, we just we process things differently. We don't talk about it a whole lot. And looking back, for me, that's something that I wish that would have had to have been able to talk it through, process through it. because in a sense, there's kind of this feeling like no one gets it. No one understands kind of what we're going through. I actually had conversations with people. The one time I did talk to somebody, they were like, well, I don't understand why it's so difficult for you. And, thinking about this pretty insensitive.
That's insensitive.
That's insensitive thing to say.
That threw me off there a minute. I'm like, wait, what? So sorry.
But when I think about that, I think like for somebody who has kids, I think if I hadn't gone through that journey in the space that I'm in now with kids, I wouldn't have a second thought about somebody who can't. I would just be thinking, yeah, like your life is easy, man. Like you get to do whatever you want, right? But when you think through that, and I think every moment of joy that I've had with my kids, every moment that's been enjoyable, and just erasing all of that, and just having no thought of like any kind of sense of legacy with my family line or anything like that. Right. And the idea of grandchildren, all that kind of stuff. It's like you just take that and you erase that entire part of human, life.
Undo it and just say this isn't going to be part of my story.
Right, and there's just an emptiness there. There's almost a mourning that comes along with it. And so we went through that for 7 years, and during that time we were youth pastors. And we had, I'll say this, whatever, I don't care.
We don't care either.
We had students in our youth ministry who were getting pregnant.
There it is.
And we were going through this journey and kind of asking questions of God and just being like, what on earth is going on, right?
Yeah.
We
really are. They shouldn't be, but they are.
They shouldn't be, and they are.
And we want to be, and we can't.
Yeah, and There's almost this, and this is a pervasive problem, I think, in Christianity in general, in that we equate faithfulness with getting what we want, right?
Ooh.
So
Pastor Paul went there this morning. Nice.
We're sitting there going, we're serving the Lord in church.
Yeah.
We're faithful givers. We're checking all the boxes for being good, healthy Christians.
Look at my sheet.
Right. The checklist is there, and yet, the nest is empty, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like this is not fair, right? And we want to talk about fairness, and then processing through helping students who just made poor choices and they're now pregnant.
Right.
Some of them went through miscarriages, and it's like, how do you deal with all of that as a human, and as a someone who is trying to honor God with your life when all of this stuff is blowing up in front of you, and then I've got to be at church on Sunday and be like, God is faithful, right?
Oh man, yeah.
So it was a hard journey, and then coupled onto that, we're kind of from a charismatic background, and so prophecy comes into play, right? And there's a lot of people who don't understand the difference between prophecy and encouragement, right?
Yeah.
Or prophecy and just kind of speaking their hopes,
yep.
right? And so there are a lot of people who came to us with words from the Lord, right?
Words, from the Lord. Yes.
You're going to have children, it's going to be, it's going to happen. Awkwardly, one guy, and I love this guy to death, like one of my favorite human beings, but it was a poorly timed prophecy,
Poorly timed.
Came to me, stopped me outside church one day, and he grabbed me, looked me in the eye, and he said, Paul, you need to know, the sperm and the egg are going to come together.
Yeah. Well,
and
you have a,
and I was
like a time on that.
I mean, I'll do whatever I need to do at this point.
We've been trying. Thank you.
But it's and it's moments like that where you're like, I understand where you're coming from, right?
Right.
You're well-meaning, like you mean well.
Yes.
But I think it would be better if you kept that one to yourself.
Yeah. That one. That one was let's just give that one back to the Lord.
And I would say, like, if you're in charismatic, this is like advice for people around others who are going through this thing.
Right.
If you're in those charismatic circles, like, don't prophesy.
Yeah.
When it comes to pregnancy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, unless you are, you know, a biblical prophet.
Yes.
Like if you're named Samuel or something like that, you know, and
don't let this be your first time.
Like, don't just swing at a ball, you know. This is not. This is not the kind of thing to mess around with.
Yeah, you want to encourage someone, but you wind up screwing with their emotions.
Right, because you want to put hope in someone's heart, but the reality is like that might not be God's story, right? That might not be God's story for their life.
Yep.
And particularly in, you know, hypercharismatic circles, you know, this belief that that God always is going to heal, God is always going to do the miracle, like, it's just not the reality, right? That's not the reality you see when you read Scripture, and it's not the reality that we experience.
Right.
So we really shouldn't be going up to people going, "Hey, this is going to happen." Because yeah, but what if it doesn't? Right.
Right.
What's going to happen to that person's faith when
thankfully the sperm and the egg did come together.
The sperm and the egg did come together. Yeah.
But
yeah, and
good Lord.
As a guy going through all of that kind of thing, and men and women, they process things differently. So my wife, as she was going through it, very emotional, you know, very, it's just a really hard time. And so many lies that are spoken, like in the mind. And actually during this time, I heard there was a pastor preaching one time. He said, a lie spoken at the right moment of vulnerability can sound like the truth, right? And
Pastor Paul is here again. There we go. This is good.
And
nice.
You want to talk about a moment of vulnerability like this.
Yeah.
This time, because there's so many things like, you know, there's the idea that this is the only thing that women can do and she can't do it, you know, and it's like, there's so much pain associated with it. And the emotional journey there is hard. Guys process it differently, right? Guys are, and I was talking to somebody this last year about this, guys are emotionally a lot like a piano with a single note, right? So it doesn't matter which key you press.
Right.
You're going to get one sound, and that sound is anger, right?
That's very insightful.
It's like
very insightful.
Doesn't matter which note, doesn't matter which key you're playing. It's coming out in anger. And that's generally true for men. And that's true for me. Like just moments of rage.
Right.
Where it's like, I'm fine. Something just got broke, right?
Yeah. I guess if you're assigning gender to your emotions, I guess the most masculine would be anger, I guess.
Yeah. It's
based on culture anyway.
Right.
So yeah.
But I had one experience. I was driving to work one day, and we'd want to talk about lies believed in the right moment of vulnerability. I was driving to work one day, and I just had this thought, and it was like, if you can't have children, then you lack any real purpose in life.
Ooh.
Right?
Yes, and very untrue that is, but
sitting here now, you know, this is probably 10, 15 years ago that this was, well, it couldn't be 15 years ago, we weren't married yet, but probably 10 years ago.
I won't tell anybody the math there.
Probably 10 years ago that I had that thought. I was driving to work. I remember exactly where I was, in my you know, on my way to work. And it just, like, I just believed it, you know, I was vulnerable and I think part of that is a cultural thing that we have, right? Mm-hmm. We almost idolize parenthood. Right, we almost idolize having children.
Yes, yeah,
and almost treat
especially in church circles.
We almost treat it like it's a promised land, right? That it's like that's the culmination of your marriage, the culmination of your life is to have children and to you know, and to kind of pass it all down. And so everything kind of for us, because we were just so focused on like, this is what we can't have, this is what we, you know. And I'll be honest, like when we first got married, I didn't really even want children that much.
There you go.
Right? But once we found out that we couldn't, it was like, well.
Yeah, you want what you can't have there. Yeah.
Right. But fast forward to 2016.
If you want some teenagers later today, you can have one of mine.
We just finished up my bout with teenagers until the fall.
You get a break,
I'm gonna take my teenager break for a bit.
Yeah.
But 2016, Black Friday, I went hunting, as was my custom in those days.
There you go.
And Ashley would go shopping, right?
As is her custom.
As was her custom.
Yeah.
So she would do the Black Friday thing. I would do the get as far away from Black Friday as possible.
Yeah.
Thing, right.
Right.
So she
smart man.
Yeah. So she, and this was the year that the PS4 had just come out.
Okay.
So I knew that there was a deal on the PS4. I knew she was going to shop, and I said, hey, why don't you go get us a PS4, right? Because we had money back then, right? So pick up the PS4.
Before the sperm and egg came together.
Kind of.
had the money.
I went to hunt, came back, and she had a box wrapped up. I'm like, PS4 time, right?
Absolutely.
And
we're going to play this video under this while you're telling this.
So I'm, in my mind, PS4 time, right? Yeah. We're going to get some video game time in. And I started, and she's got a camera rolling, right? And I'm like, this is weird that she has a camera rolling, but my brain is not.
No, because you know what's in the box.
Because I know what's in the box.
Yeah,
she just wants to see my joy as I open the PS4
absolutely.
box, right? Because that makes sense. Turns out it wasn't a PS4, right? It was a positive pregnancy test, and I mean, the video speaks for itself.
Listen,
it
y'all share that frequently, and Jimmy, you've seen it, so you know what I'm talking about. But I mean, you just talk about just the shift. I mean, like that I'd see in you, and I just watch it, and I will close the door to my office because no one needs to see this, I'm all I slobbery, not like tearing up like little old yeller. No. I'm talking like it's just like it's just a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that moment was it was a life-changing moment, right?
I can't imagine. I can't.
And just I say, men are like pianos, just a single note, anger. In that moment, absolutely not. Right?
Yes.
It was all of that stuff, those 7 years, all of the ups and the downs, the hopes, the crushed dreams, all of this stuff, and everything just kind of like came together at once. And the emotion was like, it's just, I couldn't control myself.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, we joke about it now, but like Ashley was filming it, and it just got awkward for her because she's like filming it, and I'm just like, the video cuts off, but I cried for like a long time, right? It was just like, it just went on and on and on.
Yeah.
And the joy was there, right? But also like the fear came at the same time. It was like, we have this moment of just incredible hope, but then also like, what if something bad happens?
Yeah, for sure.
What if this doesn't come to fruition? Why now?
Yeah.
Why not 7 years ago? Like, why did we have to just go through that 7 years if this was going to happen anyway? Like, what's up with that? Like, I don't understand.
So extreme excitement and then immediate trepidation.
Yeah. And then we kept it to ourselves for a couple months. We just wanted to kind of make sure that we were going to get through the most dangerous part of the pregnancy, because we didn't want to like get people's hopes up and then be like, well, we lost it. Sorry.
Right.
But then we started telling people and started seeing their joy, and they were like super stoked about it. And it was super cool to be able to share that and see how many people were just so encouraged, by that stuff. And so, that was our first. We had her in 2017, and then we got pregnant again pretty quick after that. We just figured like maybe there's just a window here, so let's just
to come together.
Yeah, let's send some more.
Yeah.
And so we got pregnant real quick with our what was to be our second, and then we lost that one in a miscarriage. And that was, I say, like, life after kids has been some of the best and some of the worst days. You know.
Yeah.
It hasn't been the promised land that I've been led to believe, you know, before, but at the same time, it's had some of the best parts of my life, you know. But yeah, losing our second was definitely one of those worst days. And I think, yeah, again, that was just another one of those really bad theology moments where it was like, I thought we were through this now, right? I thought that we had gone through all the suffering, and now it was just going to be joy, 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 right?
Yep.
But that's not how life works.
Yep.
And
like, you cross the trouble threshold, and now we're in the joy.
Yeah. And it's like, no, there's still journey there.
Yeah.
Right. And there's still stuff to go through. So we lost our second. And then again, we got pregnant again quickly after that, with who is now our son. And he came in 2019, right before the world went crazy with COVID.
Yes, it definitely did do that.
So, and then COVID added a new flavor to parenthood, right? Because I don't think I'd ever really considered, I'd considered the pain of losing children, but I had never really considered the pain of children losing a parent. Right.
Ah, okay.
And so COVID kind of brought this new flavor to the conversation, because it wasn't so much about what might happen to our kids, but what might happen to us. Right.
Okay.
And the idea of our kids growing up in a world without parents. And so there was just that fear, I guess, kind of came into the equation, that something might happen to us, you know. And I think for me, that's been the battle the past few years, has been doing everything in my power to make sure that I am as healthy as possible, right, for my kids. And because I'm older and they're younger, like, the reality is, like, you know, I'm going to be like 57 when our youngest graduates.
That's all good.
And that's, yeah, but I'm like, you know, I don't want to be old. I don't want to be an old 57-year-old. You know what I'm saying? I want to, you know, be in good shape, and also, you know, I want to see my grandkids be born. You know, I want to kind of age well enough to kind of experience all of that kind of stuff, but also have, I think it's not so much for my experience, but for them to have that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
For their kids to have grandparents, you know, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, you have certainly embraced parenthood and that fatherly, patriarchal focus. That's really cool.
Yeah. It's, there's a lot of lessons learned, I think, for me. So I think the first lesson has been to learn to engage in the phase of life you're in, right?
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time looking to the future, thinking about the next thing, or wishing that it was something else, right? And the reality is that our life is what it is, in a sense, right?
Yes.
And you are in the environment that you're in, and some things can be changed, right? Some things can be worked towards and pushed through, and you can change your situation in some sense. But there are some things that you can do nothing about, like in the case with our infertility, like, that was one of the hardest things, was like, I couldn't help my wife, right? I didn't feel like I could help her, and I couldn't change the situation.
Yes.
Right? It was just a sense of, like, this is something we have to go through.
Yeah, and as men, as husbands, let's fix it.
Oh yeah, I'm the king of fixing.
Roll up our sleeves. Let me. Yeah.
I think that's, if you want to talk about regular dad, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm the king of fixing stuff. It's got to be like, if it's broken, we'll try to fix it. If there's a solution, let's find out what the solution is. Let's do it. And this is a situation where, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't have a fix for this.
Yeah.
I don't have a way to figure this out. But what you can do is you can engage in whatever phase of life you're in, and do it to the best of your ability. and recognize that, yeah, like for us, like having kids is a wonderful thing, right? And I'm not going to deny that, but I also have to recognize it's not the promised land like we think it is. In the sense,
no, it doesn't
right?
cure what is. Just like, okay, well, if I was married, then everything would be good. Or if I was married to someone different, then everything would be good. If I had this job, if we lived over here,
Yeah. And that's learn for me. That's been a journey of learning to embrace an understanding that a lot of those issues really roll back to like my view of God.
Yep.
Right. So I think it's A.W. Tozer says, like, whatever you believe about God is the most important thing about you. Right. And it shapes so much on how you live your life, on what you think of God, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you're dissatisfied with the period of life that you're in, if you're dissatisfied with the phase that you're in, a lot of that comes back to you thinking that God is holding out on you, right? That there's something else that God should have given you,
right?
When in reality, we need to come back to this idea that like God is good, right? And that's kind of our starting place. And anytime I talk about suffering, do any kind of teaching on suffering, I'm like, that has to be our starting place, right? Mm-hmm. That God is good, and that our understanding of blessing and his understanding of blessing might not necessarily be the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Romans 8:28, all things work for the good of those who are in Christ Jesus, right? And we throw that one around, but when we look around it, we're like, what do we mean by good here? Right? And
offering it to others is one thing. Living in it is entirely different.
Right. And the way that verse is translated as well, there's all things work for the good of those. But then another way you could translate it is that in all things, God is working for the good. Right. So the thing might not be good. Right. Infertility is not good.
No.
But in that, he might be, or he is promising to work for good. Right.
Yeah.
And so there is good. And so in those situations, sometimes you can be like, well, what good can come of this? Right? What good can come of this? And I look back and I think of the times where I was thinking like that, like what good could come of this? There is no good that could come of this. Because this is a bleak, this is a barren land. There's a verse in Habakkuk chapter 3.
Now you're a pastor if you're pulling stuff from Habakkuk.
Throw an Old Testament here.
Wow.
But there's this passage in Habakkuk where there's an understanding that this exile is going to come to an end. The people of God are going to return to their land, but it's not right now, right? And the experience here is not positive. And so in Habakkuk 3 it says, though the fig tree does not bud, there are no grapes on the vine, though the olive crop fails, the fields produce no food, though there is no sheep in the pen and no cattle in the stalls. This picture that he's painting here, like for the Old Testament individual, like this is desolation, right? Like there's no crops, there's no animals, there's no food, there's nothing. These are the things that we rely on. This is abject poverty, right? And I think of my life and I think, man, we couldn't have kids. That's so terrible, right? But this is like, you don't even have food, right? You've got nothing, absolutely nothing, right? And then his next thing to say is, yet I will rejoice in the Lord.
Yeah.
I will be joyful in God, my Savior. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer. He enables me to tread on the heights. And that passage brought me through our infertility journey, right? There's nothing, right? There's literally, at times, there's literally no hope. And we'd have conversations with our doctor, and it's like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And coming to this place of recognizing, even if I don't see what I really hope I'm going to see, that I can still find joy in God, right? That there's still this place of goodness of God. And the reality is that life is hard, and God doesn't promise us that it's going to get easier. He does promise that he's going to be in it.
Right.
And he does promise us that there's a salvation in it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
In 1 Peter 1, and it talks about this, you've gone through hard things, right? But these things have come that your faith will be proved genuine, right? Yeah. And in the reality, you are receiving something in this, and what you're receiving is the salvation of your souls, right?
Yeah.
And if you hold on to that and recognize, like, that needs to be enough.
Yeah.
Right? If nothing else good happens in my life, if nothing of any of the hopes and dreams that I have, if I never even hear from God ever again in my life, he's spoken to me in his word, and he's promised me salvation, right? That has to be enough. And if that's enough, everything else is bonus.
There
right?
you go.
And that's a really hard place to come to really kind of grasp that and actually hold on to that and go, I can actually like run with this and let this be. And I would say even now, like, you know, past couple of weeks have been really hard, right? And it's been these moments where I've been like I know I believe this on paper, right?
On paper, yeah.
Like on paper, my faith is like super good, right?
Yeah. We got it all locked in here.
But the reality
in practice,
is it's hard to get that. And one of the things, you know, when you go through hard times, especially when you've got what you want,
right,
and it's still hard, like there's this pressure, and I feel this pressure a lot to enjoy every moment, right? And so like when my kids are wilding, or like my kids do something crazy, and people joke with me all the time, like my pastor says this to me all the time, makes me want to punch him, but it's okay.
That's right. He'll be later today. Actually, we'll tell him
something terrible is going on with the kids, right? And I might make mention of it to him or something like that. And he's like, you know, you prayed for this, right? I'm like,
it sounds exactly like what he would say, yeah.
And it's funny on the one side, but then on the other side, like it puts on this. I feel this sense of pressure to enjoy every moment because, like. Because we didn't have it for so long, and now we do, it's like, I have to enjoy every single thing about this. And the reality is, I don't.
Yeah.
Right? I don't enjoy really nasty diapers. Right?
Yeah, no.
I don't enjoy certain emotional outbursts from my kids, right?
Yeah.
There are moments where I'm like, I'm not enjoying this, right? And my brain then goes, well, you're not grateful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's almost like this like association that we feel like we have to have between gratefulness and enjoyment.
Right.
And that we feel like we can't be grateful unless we're enjoying it.
Right.
Or if we're not enjoying it, we're not being grateful. Right. Mm-hmm. And that puts pressure if you don't get your mind around that. Right. To say, actually, I can still be grateful even if I'm not enjoying this moment.
Yeah.
Right. I love my kids. I'm super grateful that I have my kids, but I don't enjoy them all the time.
Yeah. Right? No, that's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay.
And if there's anything that I could like encourage people with, is to say, it's okay.
Okay.
Like, it's okay to not enjoy that moment.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're not grateful.
Right.
Okay? Gratefulness and enjoyment are not correlated.
Right.
Okay. But I think the way you get through that is to recognize the goodness of God in the beginning of all things, right? That's our starting place. And, you know, the promise of salvation is the core of, you know, essentially your sense of human flourishing.
Yeah.
And that there are going to be ups and downs on the outside of that. So yeah.
Man, I tell you what, thank you so much. That I knew it was going to be good. Don't get me wrong, I knew it was going to be good. But we're talking about getting encouraged, going to church all at the same time. Hearing this great story, and I'm thankful that you were willing to come on and share the story. And I hope that anyone that listens to this will be encouraged, even if it's not about an infertility journey, even if it's about just your current place with where you are in life, that you could find just encouragement and satisfaction with where you are and living from there and living from there well. But Paul, I'm not even going to try the last name again. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for being a part of this. We won't tell Ashley any of the things.
No, she doesn't need to know about anything.
All right, sir. Well, we'll see y'all here next time on The Regular Dad.